to the next edition of the Mark You Down for a Cup of Joe podcast. I'm Mark,
I'm Joe.
and today we got a little bit of quarterly quarterback report. Try to say that 5 times fast, Joe. We've got our second year quarterly quarterback report. But Joe, before we start that, you were watching some film about Josh Rosen to see how he was doing, and something got on your radar a little bit. So would you like to share with the audience what you were so mesmerized about?
Well, I was frankly appalled at what I saw on the Miami Dolphins roster, and that is the man who stepped in and played left tackle for him. I have never seen a man get whooped that badly in my life. And I've seen some people get whooped pretty badly. And this one takes the top, man. This one, number one right there. Whatever that guy is, he made no adjustments. Robert Quinn, that guy's going to start calling Robert Quinn daddy now. I mean, that's frankly what happened. That's frankly what's going to happen now. That boy is Robert Quinn's adopted, abused son. Someone call child services on that man.
I can't. Adopted, abused son. I mean, because Joseph and I were both watching the same tape, and I was more evaluating Josh Rosen because we're going to do this quarterly quarterback report. And Joseph brought it to my attention while I was watching, Josh Rosen go through progressions or throw the ball that this number, forget whatever, this guy over here was getting beat up every play. And then, like you kind of said as we were watching it, you said, you know what? I was totally lost with Josh Rosen at that point. I was just stuck watching this poor guard tackle get beat by Robert Quinn, and it was one of the funniest things I had ever seen as well. Probably not funny for him, no disrespect. It was just quite the dominant performance by Robert Quinn, like you said. So,
to give the man some fair points, I will do this. I will not end on I will not rip that man apart that bad without giving him this disclaimer. He was their starting left guard and was moved to left tackle somewhere in the second quarter. I think it was right around the start due to an injury to their left tackle, it looks like. So he was in a completely unfamiliar position. I know I played guard and tackle in high school, and pass blocking in both of those positions was a little bit different. You have it's a little bit of a different skill set in my mind.
Yeah. So. Also, to be fair, he was a rookie as well. So, I mean, just being a rookie guard in the NFL starting is very difficult, but to have to switch again, like you said, to left tackle in the middle of a game, no familiarity with the position, probably not something he really did in college, I would imagine. That's not why they drafted him.
Yeah.
It's got to be overwhelming. And Robert Quinn, I mean, to give him credit as well, he's been pretty good this year, especially with that game we watched last night, that Cowboys-Saints game. But
I'd say he had a fairly successful game. He went home with a new child.
Well, we're going to end it on that note. Let's not, miss the point of this episode. But our quarterly quarterback report, again, we're going to say that. Again, all you listeners at home, try to say quarterly quarterback report 5 times fast. But we're going to talk about the second-year quarterbacks, the 5 quarterbacks specifically that were taken in the first round last year. And Joseph, do you want to get us started off? You can choose any of these quarterbacks. We can go in any order. I do not mind. Go for it, and we'll talk about him, what we think.
We just ripped apart this man's left tackle, so I think we should start with Josh Rosen himself. And to be quite honest with you, Mark, before I watched anything on Josh Rosen, I had assumed he was just this awful, awful, awful quarterback. Just the worst player to ever step on the field. But after watching him play, and I mainly focused on the Cowboys game, I actually saw that he isn't that bad. He's just I'd say an average quarterback playing on a really, really crappy team. While watching that film, I saw him make some really, really nice throws, some really, really great NFL-type throws. He did make some really bonehead decisions, like throwing it into double coverage a couple of times. But to be fair, on those throws, he was forced out of the pocket, and I think was just trying to get rid of the ball. And it wasn't helped. He wasn't helped by numerous drops. I counted 5, 6, if even more. I know he had a touchdown dropped somewhere around the second quarter. But overall, I think Josh Rosen, at least physically wise, and I wasn't too upset. I wasn't too appalled at what I saw from him. I think we have, a somewhat okay quarterback there, just playing on a really, really crappy team.
Yeah, I will have to agree with your assessment. I've never been the biggest Josh Rosen fan. I think to me he's not really great. He's like more of a statue in the pocket. I mean, he can maneuver around the pocket. He has a good arm, not a great arm. He can read the defense decently, but he just makes some weird decisions under pressure. Decently accurate, makes some bad throws. I mean, he is just the epitome of average, and especially coming out of the NFL draft, I really didn't see what all the hype was about Josh Rosen, the player. But at this point, I think his biggest deficiency is that he is not that mobile. If you don't have like a super strong arm or you're not super accurate, you got to at least have some mobility. Well, he doesn't have that to really make it up for him, and he's just an average quarterback stuck on a really bad team. But I think a lot of the perception of Josh Rosen is that he's a bad quarterback, especially being on Arizona his first year, and then them moving on for Kyler Murray almost gives that impression of him. So, I don't think his ceiling's that high, but average NFL starter, somewhere could he be a very similar player to Andy Dalton? I think so. Maybe a little bit stronger of an arm, but I think that's probably who he is. Joseph, who do you think Josh Rosen is when all's said and done? Like, if you had to give a pro player comparison, who would you give?
I was kind of thinking somewhere along those lines, just like kind of that average quarterback right there. And Andy Dalton came to my mind right there. Just someone who, who's going to play decent for you. He's not going to do anything. You may have a play or two that makes you go, oh, okay, this guy can play. But a lot of it's just going to be kind of, you're just going to be eating oatmeal. It's just kind of bland, nothing to it, nothing really special. You know what I'm saying?
No, I know what you're saying. So moving forward, do you think, I know this is going to be extrapolating a little bit, but do you think the Miami Dolphins should look at another quarterback option moving forward, especially with probably the first pick in the draft?
I think with this, I think they have to be eyeing a quarterback if they're tanking this hard. I don't know who else they'd really be going after in this draft if it weren't a quarterback. Look at what they've done. They started trading away a couple of players. They have, we've established that they're in full tank mode right now. So I have to imagine they're after Justin Herbert, Tua, or some of these other top quarterbacks coming out. So Josh Rosen's fighting for his job right now.
Yeah, he's fighting for his job. There's a good chance he's not in Miami next year, I think. And I really do think the guy there is Tua, so they're waiting for him. They're tanking for him. They're panzering, for him. So, anyways, we're going to move on.
Tua.
Screw up for Tua. Yep, I patented that, so don't come at me with that, audience, or anyone else that may use that phrase. Just know where it came from. So, anyways, let's move on to the second quarterback we're going to talk about. Another guy that is in that AFC East, which is interesting. 3 of these 5 quarterbacks are in the AFC East currently. But let's go with the Josh Allen guy in Buffalo. Joseph, what did you see from Josh Allen watching some of his tape at this point?
This is something that really surprised me. I didn't realize how athletic Josh Allen was. As soon as I turned on some film, as soon as I started watching on him, he just looked like a physical freak out there. He looks like he's 6'7". I know he's not that tall, but he just looked huge out there. He was running around making people miss and flat out outrunning some of these guys at certain points in the game. So he is a big athletic quarterback with a cannon of an arm. That being said, I know he's done some good things this year. He's made a couple of plays that set his team up to win. But he really hasn't done much outside of that. I could see that he wasn't the most accurate of passers. He had a couple of throws that were a little behind. He had a couple of throws that he just missed on. And, it doesn't really look like his accuracy has developed much from last year. I know last year he struggled with it a little bit too. So that's kind of what I see right now. I see just a big athletic dude back there throwing the football.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. And my pro player comparison, I know you heard me say this before, and it's something I'm always going to go back to. He reminds me of a bigger, stronger, faster, bigger arm version of Cam Newton, which is saying a lot because Cam Newton is a physical freak coming out of college. But I think some of those accuracy concerns that persist with Cam Newton are going to persist with Josh Allen throughout his career. I just don't think they're natural throwers of the football. I mean, I think both of them are more athletes playing quarterback as opposed to quarterback athletes. And that's my pro player comparison. That being said, if he does fix those accuracy issues and if he can learn kind of how to read the defense, that this sky's the limit for this guy. Like, he'll be the best quarterback in football. It's just, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that in Buffalo. And another interesting thing to think about is
Well,
that,
if
go
I
for it.
can add there, if he can fix his accuracy, like you said, I do think he has the potential to be one of the best quarterbacks in football. Because one thing that I noticed in him that I haven't really seen in Cam as much is that Josh Allen was willing to sit in the pocket and make the throw. There were a couple of times where I just saw him stand back there and let it rip, and he got drilled because of it. While watching Cam, I didn't see that as much. I'm just going back to your player comparison. Some of those times I'd imagine him rolling out and maybe running for 2-3 yards instead of throwing the ball down the field. Josh Allen, it looks like his first choice is to throw the ball.
Yeah, I mean, his first choice is to throw the ball. I mean, stylistically, they're pretty similar. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but
Yeah.
One thing you have to think about with Josh Allen is that I know the Bills are 3-1, and a lot of people have been giving credit to Josh Allen. But what would we be saying about Josh Allen right now if he didn't have that Buffalo defense keeping him in games? That Buffalo defense is one of the best in the NFL, and Josh Allen isn't necessarily putting up a bunch of points. He's just making a couple plays here and there. I mean, it's very possible that if the Bills were 1-3 or 0-4, we look at Josh Allen as a potential bust candidate. But right now he's on that really good team. He's making a couple plays that they need to win. I know he just got hurt with that concussion. We'll see how that comes. But that's my evaluation of Josh Allen. Ceiling, better than Patrick Mahomes, dare I say. I mean, because that's how physically gifted this guy is. Floor, I mean, less accurate version of Cam Newton. So let's see how this all plays out. Is there anything else you want to add with Josh Allen as we talk about him?
Nope, I think we covered it, Mark.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So who's the next quarterback you're going to bring up in this conversation?
Let's go down to the AFC North, Mark, and let's go talk about Baker Mayfield, quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. What have you seen with him this year, Mark?
With Baker Mayfield, I see a lot of what he did as a rookie, but like earlier in the year as a rookie, just kind of repeating itself now. And what I mean by that is when he first came in, he was making plays here and there, but he was also turning the ball over quite a bit. But you could see the potential there. And as the season drove on, Baker Mayfield seemed to be improving as a passer and really understanding the game of football a little bit better, making more plays, and still not turning the ball over as much as he did early on. But with Baker, I see that rookie coming back like he was last year. I see him not making as many plays and really just kind of lost out there, not throwing, the ball in good spots, just forcing it a little bit too much, not really putting the ball where it needs to be. And that's a lot concerning for me in Baker Mayfield because he's a smart guy. So I don't think it's him not being able to read the defense. I think right now it's like a confidence thing where, he's not making the same plays as he did last year. So, he's just rolling out and really not knowing what to do with the ball because I don't think he's really pulling the trigger like he did early in his career. But Joseph, what are you seeing out of Baker Mayfield?
I'd have to say the same thing, Mark. I think the biggest thing is you mentioned it, is his lack of confidence. I've watched him a couple of times this year, and he just looks a little scared and a little timid out there. And I think part of that is due to the fact that his offensive line is banged up. They're not the best unit out there right now. And he is pressured a lot. And to be granted, the game I did watch was against the St. Louis Rams. So we know Aaron Donald and the rest of that defensive line, they can wreak havoc on anybody. But it just seems like that's been a recurring problem throughout the year. Maybe it was just magnified since the Rams have that stellar defensive line. But considering the fact that he has offensive weapons, he has Odell Beckham, he has Jarvis Landry, he has Nick Chubb, who is looking like a very, very talented young running back. He's not making as many plays as we'd like to see, especially with those playmakers that he has. Him and Odell haven't really had any connection. Him and Jarvis Landry, for most of the season, they haven't done much. They did have a huge game this past Sunday. I think Landry went for 180 yards, right around there. And then same thing with Nick Chubb. So I think the big thing is just the big plays aren't there with the weapons he has. He's not making any plays with them.
Yeah, part of it, I think he is getting hit a lot. I don't really know how much this is a factor, but I'm not really a fan of Freddie Kitchens' offense. I think it's very boring, unimaginative, and predictable. I don't know how much that has to play into Baker's struggles as well. Maybe he's just not.
If I may point out one thing to the play calling, we're talking about the man who ran a draw play on 4th and 9. And then coming out after the game said that was the play he wanted to run. So I'd have to question this man's play calling after hearing about that.
Well, yeah, and is Baker maybe not that he's losing confidence in himself? Could it be that he's losing confidence in the play calling, just not seeing the matchups he wants, or not seeing, positive looks on the field? Is that what he's not confident in? So he's not really taking those risks anymore. And yeah, this lack of confidence thing is very, very serious for the Cleveland Browns, because I think it's being manifested. Like last week, Rex Ryan called out Baker Mayfield, and Baker Mayfield said something to the effect of, "We're not worried about people who aren't in the building," and basically, why doesn't Rex Ryan have a coaching job? There's a reason. And just kind of that little added thing at the end tells me that confidence is taking a shot, that he's getting very defensive. He's kind of sensitive right now, and I don't think this bodes well for Cleveland Browns fans. He's becoming a little bit more like my guy Derek Carr. I mean, in the sense that, he was this supremely confident quarterback and was able to throw the ball down the field, make a lot of plays, and it's regressing a little bit. And if I was a Browns fan, I would be really concerned, Joseph.
Yes, I would be too.
So do you see Baker Mayfield somehow getting this confidence back this year, or are we going to see more of the same from him for the rest of the year?
It's one of those things where he has proven that he can play really well. He showed that last year. And with the weapons that he has, I do believe he can get back there. I think it's just something that him and, it's going to be something that he takes care of off the field, whether it be mentally, physically, maybe it's a game scan, maybe it's scheming, whatever they need to do to fix this, they need to do it now and fast.
Yeah, they need to do it now and fast. Otherwise, Cleveland, I mean, they have a great defense and a lot of weapons. I mean, it's really that quarterback, that offense. They need to figure it out. Otherwise, we're looking at another lost year in Cleveland. But we've talked about them a lot. Let's move on to the other team in the AFC East. We're going to finish off the AFC East. We're going to go with the New York Jets and Sam Darnold. And I know we haven't seen a lot from him this year because of his whole mono thing, which is really interesting. I've never heard of that for an NFL quarterback or any NFL player. But Joseph, what did you like from Sam Darnold?
Sam Darnold. I know right before I went on my 2-year mission, he was being talked about as the next thing in the NFL, that he was going to be the savior of whatever team he went to. And with that, I haven't seen. I won't say that he's been awful. I'd say the bigger thing is he just hasn't done much, if that makes sense. It just seems like he's playing very, very average, where he's not doing a whole lot to win you games, but he's not doing a whole lot to kill you in the games. If you look at his stats, you look at his numbers, they're not awful. They're kind of average type of numbers, something you wouldn't expect for a so-called savior of a franchise. So we'll see what he can do this year. I know he's only played one game this year. He didn't play awful in that game. He did throw for, about 70%, threw a touchdown. But it doesn't look like he's throwing the ball down the field. He only had 20. He didn't have a throw of 20 plus yards that game, or a play of 20 plus yards that game. So those are just a couple of my thoughts on Sam Darnold.
Yeah, my thoughts on Sam Darnold are somewhat the same, a little bit different. When I look at Sam Darnold, I see a quarterback who is smart and makes great decisions on the football field. He's pretty athletic. He doesn't have the strongest arm, which is a little bit concerning. And I thought going into his second year, he might be able to develop a little bit more arm strength. I mean, the guy's only 21, 22 years old, so I don't think his body's fully developed yet. But yeah, I just don't think we've seen enough from him this year. He played okay in his first game. I forget, who were they playing? Do you remember?
Oh,
Let
off
me.
the top, I can't remember off the top of my head.
I'm gonna go back and look at that, but just to see if what kind of defense he was playing against. But he played well. I'm just really excited to see him come back and see what he can do because he played the Bills, who have a very good defense, and he played relatively well. So you know, not high completion percentage. I mean, he wasn't doing too much, but at least he didn't really turn the ball over. So we'll see what Sam Darnold can do. It's just with him, I think a lot of his intangibles are great as a quarterback, but his physical tools might not be up to par with what you want from a starting quarterback. So, is there anything else you want to add about Sam Darnold?
I think the biggest thing is, well, one of the bigger things is that he's still such a young quarterback, like you mentioned. So, 2-3 years, he may develop into, he may, heck, we don't know. He could grow another 3 inches and put on like 30 pounds and start throwing the ball 90 yards down the field. And then we'll be talking about him as the next Patrick Mahomes. So we'll see. I
You
say
throw
give him a
the
few.
ball 90 yards. Throw the ball 90 yards down the field. He will be better than Patrick Mahomes. That would be
let's
insane.
let's see what he does in a few years. I think this is a guy that in a few years could develop into someone.
Yeah, I definitely think so, and I think they've done the right thing in New York with the Jets. Just picking up Le'Veon Bell, building that defense. Really, I mean, their weapons aren't necessarily the greatest, but I mean, they're just trying to get him to manage games right now and keep him close. They're not really asking him to go out and make a ton of throws and win games. I think that's smart for the development of a young quarterback. So, anyways, let's move on to the last quarterback, AFC North. Joseph, we're talking about Lamar Jackson. What have you seen from Lamar Jackson this year?
He started off really, really explosive, and I was actually really excited about it and wondering if he was a changed quarterback. But I think these past few games have been a little bit more telling of who Lamar Jackson really is. He is a tremendous athlete. I will give him that. He is a fantastic runner of the football, which makes him a dual threat quarterback, obviously. He ran for 120 yards this year. I forget against who. And most quarterbacks don't do that. I think he was one of the first most quarterbacks don't do that. But these past few games, we're starting to see, I think, some of the issues he had, early in his career throwing the ball. Let me just pull up something real fast. Maybe while I'm pulling this up, Mark, maybe you can go and give your thoughts on Lamar.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson. Obviously, he had that great week 1 against the Miami Dolphins, who have officially, as we speak, breaking news, have changed their logo to a Panzer tank because they are going to the tongue of Iloa. But still very impressive. Was able to throw 5 touchdowns, put up 59 points or whatever it was. I did kind of have the caveat that during that game, Miami didn't use a safety, like a free safety over the middle of the field, so they were kind of getting anything they wanted down the field. So, I mean, there was that, but, still put up that many points, throw that many touchdowns is impressive. Then he had a really good game week 2. Was feeling really good about him. But then I think the Chiefs kind of exposed them a little bit where, the Chiefs run that 4-3 defense and they like to play a lot of man. And we started seeing Lamar Jackson missing throws and not being able to throw the ball accurately versus man coverage. And I think he's been kind of come down to earth. I think we're looking at a quarterback that started really, really hot and who's kind of cooled off, and now we see what he actually is. He's, not the most accurate passer all the time, but, I think he is what he is. He's a great athlete, and he's throwing the ball, average right now. So, That's kind of what I think about Lamar Jackson. Joseph, do you have your thing pulled up that you were looking at?
Yes, I was just going to pull up some stats from this last game against Cleveland, their division rival. If you look at the stats, they don't look too bad. 250, 3 touchdowns. He did throw 2 picks, but
Mm-hmm.
most of the points scored in this game came in garbage time in the fourth quarter when the Browns had the lead and were just, playing conservative, just running the clock out, just sealing up the victory right here. So for 3 quarters of this game, this quarterback wasn't really doing much. Lamar wasn't doing much throwing the ball, wasn't really making any plays. And we've seen this 2 weeks in a row now where this has happened. Against Kansas City, he didn't have any touchdowns against one of the weaker defenses in the league. I'm not saying one of the weaker defenses in the league. So, like you said, I think we're seeing I think he got off to a really, really hot start against two of the crappier teams in the NFL, I'll say, Arizona and Miami, and we're starting to see him cool down and come back to earth a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I'm not going to anoint him another next great quarterback. I think he'll be a good quarterback, but I think he's always going to have to rely on his legs. I don't think he's going to be the guy who's going to drop back and kill you from the pocket. So that's kind of how I feel about Lamar Jackson. Anything else you want to add about Lamar?
Nope, I think we covered most of it.
Okay, perfect. So let's just do this little, I guess not thought experiment, but little thing. So Joseph, if you had to choose one of these 5 quarterbacks over the next, let's say, 3 years, to lead your franchise, which quarterback will you choose?
For the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Like, who do you think is going to be best at the end of the next 2 years?
Okay. Right now, I would probably have to take Lamar Jackson right now.
Okay.
He has had the most success, I feel, out of these 5 quarterbacks so far, and although his ceiling may not be as high as some of these guys, I think he does have a very, very high ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
With that athleticism and with that explosiveness, he has big play threat, and I think that's why he's the guy I'd go with.
Okay. Let me think. I'm going to have to go with Baker Mayfield. I was thinking Sam Darnold, but I like Baker Mayfield's moxie. His ability to make plays, I think that's going to come back. Whether or not it's with the Browns, that's a different story. I don't know how fast they'd move on from him, but I think if they got him with a coach that actually knows how to scheme and game plan, you're going to see a lot of that. Throwing the ball down the field, making plays. I know he's not the most athletic guy on the field, but he's a decent athlete and he's got a really strong arm, even though he's only 6'1". And you know what? Baker Mayfield is deadly accurate. That's one thing that I really do like about him. He throws probably the most accurate ball out of any of these quarterbacks in last year's draft. So give me Baker Mayfield over the next 3 years. With the Browns, maybe not, but as a quarterback, I like Baker Mayfield quite a bit. So, all right, so that'll do it for our episode today about our quarterback quarterly watch. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe on the YouTube. Also follow us on Mark It Down for a Cup of Joe on Facebook as well to get updates of episodes whenever they go live. But anyways, this has been Mark.
Joe.
And we'll see you the next time with our NFL pick'ems.